Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome everyone to the council meeting today. It's nice to see we have visitors. It's always nice. So welcome and thanks for coming. I'm going to ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act today. If so, we'll declare it now. Seeing none, we'll move right along. Councillor Gunson.
Mayor Turn, can I make a motion, please?
Go ahead.
The Council of the Town of Minto amend the order of the agenda. Consider item 9B5, CL 2024-002, Sunday gun hunting prior to item 6A, intact insurance renewal delegation.
Do we have a second for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Dirksen. So, all in favor of the motion? It's carried. So we are going to move up. CL 2024-002, the gun hunting, Sunday gun hunting. We have a recommendation moved by Deputy. Sorry.
Through you, that will just be prior to item 6. So after the public hearing.
Okay, so where should I be then?
We should just be at number 3 now. Sorry, thank you. Minutes of previous meeting.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion by Councillor Dirksen, seconded by Councillor Elliott, that the minutes of the Town of Minto, February 20th, 24 regular council meeting be approved. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you. Moving council into committee of the whole, moved by Councillor Potnovich, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that the Council of Town of Minto convene into the committee of the whole. All in favor of that motion? Thank you. That's carried. So, doing that one now then?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a public meeting today. It's ZBA 2024-01, Lavalette Limited, 5113 Wellington Road, 87. I'll be the chair of the public meeting. And has everybody signed in? I believe that Annaline has made sure of that. Thank you, Annaline. So I'm going to state the following. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Town of Minto before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Town of Minto to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of the appeal before the tribunal unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. I'm going to ask Clerk McRobb to state the municipal address and the legal description of this property.
Yes, thank you. The municipal address and legal description of the property and the purpose and effect. The property subject to the proposed amendment is located in concession 8, part lot 42, concession 9, part Gore lot 42, and municipally known as 5113 Wellington Road 87 in the Town of Minto. The subject property is approximately 41 hectares or 98.84 acres in size. The purpose and effect of the proposed amendment is to rezone the subject lands to prohibit future residential development on the retained agriculture portion of the property. This rezoning is a condition of severance application B81/23, which has been granted provisional consent by the Wellington County Land Division Committee. The consent will sever a 0.63 hectare or 1.6 acre parcel with an existing dwelling. A 40 hectare or 98.84 acre agriculture parcel would be retained. Additional relief may be considered at this meeting. The notices were mailed to the property owners within 400 feet or 120 meters of the subject property, as well as the applicable agencies, and posted on the subject property on February 20th, 2024. Reports and comments were received from Wellington County as well as the Town of Minto. And that's back to you.
Okay, thank you, Clerk McRobb. Okay, so we're going to ask our county planner, says here Curtis Marshall, but Curtis is not here. So Jessica, go ahead, please.
Thank you. So today's statutory public meeting is for application ZBA 2024-01 for the lands located at 5113 Wellington Road 87. So this is to rezone the lands to restrict agricultural uses or residential uses on the retained agricultural parcel. This is a condition of severance application B81/23, which went to the Wellington County Land Division Committee in January of this year. The consent application was applied for under the surplus farm severance requirements, where the PPS and the county official plan allow for surplus farm severances, provided the farm parcel is rezoned to restrict future residential development. So the intent of this policy is to allow farmers to reduce their costs and acquire additional farm parcels where the impact on existing and future farm operations can be kept to a minimum. So the subject lands are designated prime agricultural, core greenlands, and greenlands in the county official plan and zoned agricultural and natural environment in the local zoning bylaw. The retained farm parcel will receive the standard A-5 zone, which restricts future residential uses on the retained agricultural parcel, and the smaller rural residential parcel will remain as agricultural zone, but will be restricted to the reduced lot regulations in the local zoning bylaw. And planning staff have no concerns with the application as it meets the PPS and the county official plan. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer those as well. Do you want me to do a summary of the town report too, since Terry's not here? I
Sure.
can
Would
just-
you mind doing that?
Yeah, I
Our
can do that.
CBO is on Zoom,
Oh, okay, yes,
but if you don't mind doing that, I'm okay with that.
okay.
You okay, Annalee? Clerk
Yes,
McGrath?
that's great.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Then go ahead. Thank you.
So similar to their report, they've outlined the official plan designation and the zoning there. Comments were received from town staff as well as myself, the county planning department, Maitland Valley Conservation Authorities, who all indicated that they had no concerns. And just a quick, there was no written comments, but we did receive notification from 2 neighboring residents to speak at today's meeting. But no concerns from local staff as well.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move to the owners. Owner applicant to provide comments regarding, so we'll ask Chelsea Major, please, and if you don't mind moving to the podium and state your name, please.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Major, and I'm a planner with MHBC Planning, and I'm here on behalf of my client, Levelit Limited. Jessica did a great overview, so I don't want to add too much more to your meeting today, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me at this time.
Okay, so we'll do question period in a moment.
Okay.
All right, but we're going to ask so you're speaking on behalf of the applicant. You guys are okay with that? Okay, perfect. So now we're going to ask Brad Hall to, if there's something that you want to talk about, would you mind heading over to the mic, podium, state your name, and the floor is yours.
My name is Brad Hall. She basically just answered the questions that I would have had. I was just concerned about what was happening with the previous property, which I didn't know what it was going to be zoned. So, and the existing property, the farmland and that. But other than that, the questions have already been answered. So don't want to waste any more of your time.
Well, you're not wasting our time, Brad. We really, we like that when we can answer the questions before they're answered. So thank you for your comments and thank you for coming. So now we're going to open it up to council. Anybody have questions? Now's your opportunity to direct them to either Jessica or Chelsea. I've been told that this is a very straightforward application, and if there's no questions, then we're going to move along to Chelsea. Is there anything else that you want to add, or Jessica? Okay, all right. So I'm going to state the following, that if you wish to be notified of the decision of the Council of the Town of Minto in respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application, you must make a written request to the Clerk of the Town of Minto at 5941 Highway 89, Hairston, NOG 1ZO, or by email at annaleen.town.minto.on.ca. And if there's no further comments, I'm going to adjourn this public meeting. So thank you very much, and if you folks want to stay around, and if not, you can leave your seat for somebody else. Okay, thanks. Free coffee, I think there is coffee, sorry.
Downstairs.
Next time you come, we'll get the coffee out. All right, thanks a lot. Okay, so now we're going to do the Sunday gun hunting.
As I get my.
Okay.
Hold up.
So we have a motion to move this ahead, and so you folks.
I have to sit through all the fun stuff.
Yeah, so I have a recommendation. I think I already read it, but I'm going to do it again. Moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Dirksen, that the Council of Town of Minto receive report CL 2024-02 regarding the Sunday gun hunting, and whereas hunting in Ontario is regulated by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, and whereas individual municipalities may decide whether to permit Sunday gun hunting. And therefore, be it resolved that the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry be notified that the Town of Minto supports and authorizes Sunday gun hunting in the Town of Minto in accordance with provincial legislation. And further, be it resolved that the staff requests the Minister of the National Resources and Forestry to amend the appropriate regulation to include the Town of Minto in the list of municipalities that authorize Sunday gun hunting in Ontario. Is there any comments? And go ahead, Councillor Dirksen.
Thank you, Mayor Turton. I was just curious about a couple of things. This is very easy to do. Is it easy to undo if we decide we have some problems?
Okay.
I'm assuming, I think I can probably answer my question, but
Sure.
Is it a 2/3 consideration by council then to reconsider? Would that be it? And then that part I know would be easy, but oh, maybe not. But would I guess I'm looking at the government of Ontario, would that be easy to change if we decided we wanted to? I'm assuming it's as easy to undo as it is to do.
I cannot give you a definite answer on that without talking to them directly. I don't want to give an answer and it be incorrect. As far as I know, we should be able to do the same thing, but there are other processes you could put in place if there was an issue with Sunday gun hunting as well.
Yeah, and so I guess maybe some of those, I just want to talk about a little bit. The letter from, sorry, these things are not, the two things are not together, so I have to go back here and find it. That's not it. This one. Nope, that's not it.
I think it was the first one,
This-
correspondence.
Yeah, there it is. So this is, I don't know this person at all, but this is kind of what I was hoping we might get from someone.
Right.
Like, I don't want anybody to feel unsafe on their own property, and I sure don't want anybody to feel unsafe on the trails. Like, I think those are things that we need to at least be aware of.
Mhm.
Not saying that we need to turn this down, just that we need to be aware of that. And I think the people, the hunters that she's talking about, those are bad eggs. Like, they're not all like that. So I think that the advice that we should be giving to people who are either not wanting people to hunt on their property on any day, because that sort of sounds like she would rather not have anybody on her property any day. Post your property, people, and then this won't be, well, it shouldn't be a problem. At least you have something to stand on if you do have hunters who are not hunting in the best of ways, or if they're on your property and you want to be able to go for a walk in your bush and not worry about things like guns flying over your heads.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that, because otherwise this letter will just kind of get lost in the fray whenever we get to correspondence. So I just wanted to make sure that it was noticed
Yeah.
in some way. So that was all I wanted to say.
Yep, she brought her concerns forward. And
Yes.
again, if there is somebody that's on your lands that shouldn't be, you would call the OVP
Yeah.
to have them removed. So, yep.
And you would do that today without this
Yes,
regulation?
yeah, because this is just one more day, right?
Yes.
And so, yeah, it's,
I mean, we had one other one that was, to do with leaving stuff on properties and things like that, and that's just totally disrespectful. So, Deputy Mayor Anderson, go ahead.
So this person called me, and it's all well and good to say she can post a sign. I don't know that they have signs posted, but my understanding is people have to ask for express permission to come and hunt on somebody's land. They have
That's correct.
They have never given anybody permission, but the hunters that they have encountered there, they have dogs. So the dogs, they let them loose on the land, and then their excuse is they have to go follow the dogs. And then she comes along and she finds she's taking her children walking, and they're the entrails of an animal. For a family that doesn't hunt at all, there's people who like hunting, people who don't. But for people who don't, that's a pretty disturbing thing to come across, I would think. So what does she do about those issues? You can't have the OPP there all the time. You're well aware of
It is a
that.
trespassing issue. It is not a bylaw issue.
I understand that, but it's still a concern raised in our community that I think we deserve to listen to.
Sorry, I was daydreaming. Pardon me. Go ahead, CAO.
Thank you, Mayor Turton. What we can do is definitely post information on our website to landowners in steps that they can take to ensure that if they are not interested in having people hunt on their lands, what they could do. Things along the lines of signage, as well as, if they do find somebody who continually is, not adhering to what their requests are, what courses of action they can take.
Okay, so we'll listen to our CBO. Go ahead, Terry.
I don't see him.
You're not going to see them in the screen.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. Just to chime in about the whole dog thing. Even when hunting with dogs, I know the dog owners don't have control over where the dogs particularly go, like where they're chasing coyotes or whichever through. It still would not give that hunter the right to discharge a firearm on that person's property, regardless of where the dogs are. The dogs would have to chase whatever they're hunting through that person's property onto a property that they have permission to hunt. So discharging the firearm on that property, regardless if they're hunting with dogs or no dogs, still is an offense under the Trespass to Property Act.
Okay. Thank you, Terry. Go ahead, Councillor Potnovitz.
Yes, through you, Mayor Turton. I just had a comment or question here in regards to, I'm not sure what the policy or procedure is, but if somebody shot a deer and it passed away on somebody else's property, are they obligated to go over and gut it there or whatever they have to do and like with this complaint we have? I don't know if that's maybe what happened on this in that scenario, but what is the procedure or policy? I'm not sure.
It's a good question.
That's not a question I would have an answer for.
Okay, so is
That would
there
have to be
anybody
to
in the
ministry.
house? Sir? Yeah, would you mind stepping to the mic, please? Tell us who you are and go ahead. I know that you drove all the way up here from Petrolia, so it'd be nice to have you speak.
Absolutely. My name is Mark Brate. I'm a volunteer director with the Ontario Federation of England Hunters, and try to answer that question. Ethically, and the right thing to do is for a proper hunter that's well skilled in what he's doing, if he was to knock the animal down on property and it carried on, which it most cases will do, they would move that animal back to that property that they were allowed to hunt on and deal with it at that particular time. That's the way the common sense approach would be to that situation. Okay? With permission, yes, yes.
So, Mark, if you don't mind just staying there, you seem to be the resident expert. Go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Just a comment, all these concerns are important and such like, and we're talking about people that go on the land and somebody else's land without permission. it's not gonna matter whether it's Sunday or whether it's Monday, these guys are gonna do that anyway. So if they're bad actors, they're bad actors, as Counselor Dirksen said, providing them, allow them to have their sport on a Sunday is fine. The bad guys are gonna be the bad guys. And they probably hunt on Sundays without permission anyway if they're doing that.
So I have a quick question, Mark. So you are all over this. You've been all over the province. What's our biggest risk?
Really, there's not a large risk because it's just another day in the ability to allow people to hunt. The rules are the same for Monday to Saturday. Now they're the same for Monday to Sunday. And yes, there are people that violate rules like speeding and everything else in the particular situation, but you also have the Ministry of Natural Resources, which has a large enforcement branch. I live in Petrolia, as they say. The local office is in Chatham, Ontario, and we were deer hunting in December. And who did I run into? But an M&R enforcement officer that was in our area because that was the hunting season. So he was in that area to just make sure we were complying with the law.
So we have another rule in Minto that if you own the property, and I want to come and hunt on your property, I need your written permission. Is that something that's fairly regular in most municipalities?
Yes, actually, for members of the Ontario Federation of Angling Hunters, they are insured, okay? And because they're a member, they're allowed to carry a document which they can go to the door of the landowner and say, hi, I would like to hunt on your property, and I just want to show you that I'm insured, and I can sign this, and you can sign this, and then I have permission to do that. That's
Okay.
and so it's a document that's available to them.
So I think the thing that I look at this whole situation as positive is, I mean, we had an editorial in the Wellington Advertiser last week, which was very well put together. And I think a lot of the stuff that we're talking about is items that we certainly weren't aware of. At least I certainly am not. And I think it's bringing light to a lot of things that a lot of people can look at and say, wow, that's interesting stuff. I need to take heed. If there's people that are hunting and they shouldn't be, like you said, people speed and all the other things. And so is there other questions? Okay, Mark, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to call the question on this. All in favor of the motion? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. So we'll move back to delegations. And I mean, if you folks want to stay, that's fine. If you want to leave, that's okay too. Okay, thanks a lot. Have fun on Sunday.
Not this Sunday yet.
Yeah, it's not hunting season.
Well, they're after coyotes. So I'm going to welcome our two friends here today. We got Jeremy and Colin. And you're going to be docked for being late, if that's okay. Oh, Gord did? Okay. So I'm going to pass the chair over to Councillor Dirksen to go through our insurance. So gentlemen, if you don't mind moving to the podium and state your name and go ahead, Councillor Dirksen.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Turton. I think I'm turning this over to Treasurer Duff to introduce our insurance.
Good afternoon, everyone. Chairman Brown, thank you for having us.
Good afternoon, council and staff. Thanks. Colin Smith from Intact Public Entities. As Gord introduced, thank you. So we have the floor, I guess. I can run through my report
Yes, sir.
for you. So
Floor is
Gord-
yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Gord has a great summary in the council agenda that he's included here. So I'm just going to touch on some of the highlights, some of the changes that you might see over last year. Talk a little bit about cyber insurance, not in any volume, of course, but we'll just touch on that briefly, and the costing, and then answer any questions for you that you might have. So I'll start with the pricing this year, and as you're aware, we've been through a few years. The insurance market's been in a bit of a state of flux, a hard market, if you will. We've kind of used that term overwhelmingly over the last few years, and I'm sure everyone's tired of hearing it, just as we are. So things, thankfully, are starting to stabilize. So we're out of, knock on wood, we're out of the days that we're seeing high double-digit increases. We've experienced those over the last couple of years, starting in 2020, 2021. Things started to stabilize a little bit, and we were still in the teens last year, but I'm happy to report this year the overall increase to the insurance premiums is 8% approximately over last year, so the expiring premium. That varies depending on the line of business or the policy that we refer to. But the biggest three are general liability, your property insurance, and your automobile insurance. So Gord's touched on the increases there. So general liability, again, that's the policy that you see where claims are against for slip and falls, sidewalk liability, also your road liability. So if you're subject to a lawsuit involving road maintenance, for instance, that would fall to the general liability policy. Municipalities across the province are no stranger to large claims involving those exposures. So again, that policy does command a lot of premium, and we do see a lot of claims there across the province. That is a 5% increase over last year. On the property side, we have to factor in replacement costs, considering inflationary factors. Obviously, the building sector experienced quite significant inflationary factors as a result of labor shortage, material shortage, price has gone up. So we try and keep in line, and in some instances we stay a little bit below what Stats Canada is projecting for building inflation values. So we added a 9% factor to building inflationary costs for that. And then again, there's a little bit of rate increase on top of that. So the inflationary factor increases the value of your buildings to account for if one were to have a loss, the cost to rebuild that, and then a bit of rate with the current market conditions. So the bottom line was 12% on property. And the other larger item is automobile insurance. Vehicles are continuing to be expensive to replace. They're hard to procure right now. And so if you do have a loss for a vehicle, it's often quite a significant time frame to get a new one. And again, the cost to replace a pickup truck, for instance, are a lot higher than they were years ago, as our auto losses continuing on the rise. So there is a bit of rate adjustment there, about 16% on the automobile line. And then bottom line, year over year, we're 8.2% increase. So I'll move on to changes over last year. One that I just want to touch on, generally the changes they do not impact the core policies. On the property policy, we did implement a change with respect to unlicensed equipment. And so that is vehicles that are not licensed on the road, they are insured by our property policy. These could be loaders, graders, lawnmowers, for instance. Anything that's not licensed to be on a road would be insured under the property policy. The change that we've implemented this year is that from 1 to 5 years of age on that equipment, you have full replacement cost if that vehicle is damaged. From 5 to 15 years, you will still have replacement costs, but we need to know the exact values, today's market value, to replace that. So if a unit's 5 years old, it generally costs quite a bit more to replace, such as a loader, for instance. Cost that you paid 5 years ago is likely significantly higher today. The insurers want to make sure they're insured to value. So we've implemented this change. So from 5 to 15 years, we will still replace it with a brand new unit, but we do need to have the accurate value on file. After 15 years old, that becomes actual cash value or the depreciated value of the asset. So if you do have those assets that go up to 15 years or longer in their lifespan, after that 15-year mark, they will be settled at actual cash value if they're involved in a claim. The last point I want to touch on with respect to changes, and it's not necessarily noted because we implemented it midterm last year, the cyber policy. So we touched on this last year, and we've been working with staff. It was obviously a long process to get cyber insurance implemented. There was requirements that had to be met, but I'm pleased to report that we did implement cyber insurance, and you do have a policy that's in force. I believe we bound it in November, and it goes until the renewal of this current term, so March 1st, 2025. So it was a 15-month term that we ended up expanding just to make sure it lined up with the next renewal date. So that's good news, and I think it was a few years in the making of trying to get all the back-end stuff in place to be able to secure that cyber insurance. There is one option that I wanted to touch on as well before answering any questions you have. Now, there was quotes that we included in our program options to increase your deductibles if you wish to look at that. The one quote that we added in there was to increase your property deductible, which is currently $10,000 so like, again, that's buildings, unlicensed equipment, contents. The deductible is currently at $10,000. To increase that to $25,000 would result in annual savings of about $9,000 on your insurance premiums. So that is something in there to consider and to weigh the options to recognize savings. And that's all I have.
Business and then business side. Any questions?
Okay, that was going to be my question when so,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so your recommendation is to accept it as presented.
Yeah, I know we have 10 to 20. And so what happens now? Yes. I'm trying to understand it even higher.
Okay, I'll read the recommendation, and then if there's any questions from council, we can entertain those. Moved by Councillor Zimmerman and seconded by Councillor Gunson, the Council of the Town of Minto receives report Finance 2024-004 regarding the 2024 insurance program renewal and approves the renewal. Any questions from any council members? Councillor Elliott.
Through you, Colin, and joint and several liability. For years, we've tried to fight that through AMO and many of the communities. Is there any hope that we can, for those that joint and several liability is where the deepest pockets? So a lot of people who have claims lower and it just moves through and immediately goes to our insurance company. So is that correct? It's kind of how it works. Yeah. So it goes to the deepest pockets, which our claims are that. So is there any movement at all for the government to move in to help us with that?
Through you, Chair. So the joint and several thing, joint and several liability argument, I guess, has been on the table for a number of years, as you may know. The Ministry Attorney General's office has reviewed it. Unfortunately, there's been no movement on the issue. It is just one of a multitude of factors that are affecting insurance rates, because not every claim is subject to a joint and several liability rule. So there has to be multiple tortfeasors, basically, or multiple claimants, and one is not able to pay the other. So if they find a third one that's a percentage at fault and they have deeper pockets, then they could be liable for the entire claim or the shortfall. So we're trying to focus the approach as a holistic kind of total cost of risk, as opposed to just focusing on joint several, because even if there is movement on that rule, you may not see the effects of that in the payment of claims for up to a decade, if not more. So it's hard to gauge on what a change in that rule may do to insurance rates, if anything at all. So right now, there's not anything going on with that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Podowitz?
Through the chair. Just on the 2024 rates, the cyber insurance not covered. What is the cost of cyber insurance annual?
Yeah, I can't recall but as rather than hiring also.
Go ahead, Treasurer Duff.
Yes.
So I was pleased. I think that the amount that we ended up paying this time was comparable to what we had maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So it turned out pretty well. Right? Yes, exactly, too. So I think we all have similar standards for reading them. And as Colin Jeremy said, there was a lot of paperwork to do, but I think it's worked out.
Okay, thank you. And Mayor Turton, did you have a question?
Thank you. Yeah, sure. A couple things that talk about the joint and several. When we go to conventions, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it just seemed to be all over the map there. People wanted to talk about it and get after the Attorney General. What are you going to do about it? Haven't heard anything about it for 2 years. So it's kind of, like you said, Colin, it's kind of at rest. So I don't know whether that's a good thing or not, but talk about cybersecurity, and we're totally covered. So we have ABC hackers. They somehow get into our system. All of a sudden, they want $1 million. So we have insurance, and we have to give them $1 million because that's what they want, and that's what we need to do to get our systems back. How's that work?
Through you, Chair. We deal with the cyber, so the experts are at the cyber insurer. So our partner who's backing or taking on the risk, they have cybersecurity experts that will get involved as soon as a claim occurs, from the negotiation process to potential payment and all that. So without getting into too many details on the public forum, because obviously we don't want to encourage
Yeah.
this type of activity, but there is potential for that type of stuff to be covered with experts, and obviously they get the law involved, law enforcement and all that stuff, and it's made as a cohesive decision with the town on the best course of action to get you back to where you were before as quick as possible.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
I just want one more thing,
Go
Chair.
ahead.
Is there any way that we can build in a 10-year agreement or a 5-year agreement at 8%? Being that it's so consistent.
As far as the bottom line increase year over year, well, the way things are trending right now, and again, if we had a crystal ball, it would be great. But the way things are trending, hopefully we can get back to inflationary as inflation comes down. Inflation is still a little bit higher, but we're coming down. And there was a point in time where 1, 2, 3% was the norm for quite a while, and that was during a pretty significant soft market. There was the prices were quite depressed at the time, and claims were still continuing to rise, which brought on the hard market. So we're hopeful that things continue to trend maybe a little bit lower by the renewal next year. So locking in at a certain rate may not be a benefit.
So I guess I was just thinking how sure you are at where the rates are going to go. And I mean, it's an unfair question, and I take it back.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. That carries. Thank you for coming, gentlemen. Thank you, Patricia.
Always a
Treasurer Duff, for
pleasure.
your help.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move into question period. Take care. And so we'll move on into the correspondence received for information. I have a motion from Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Dirksen, that the council receives the correspondence as information. So when we're looking at this, we have number A and B we've kind of dealt with, unless so the letters that we get, we respond.
As there was a decision made on this, I will be responding to anyone who had written a letter to us.
Thank you.
In regards to this meeting and the previous one as well.
Okay, so is there any of these items that anyone wants to pull and have a discussion on, or is there anything that, the letter in response to the Roma delegation? Go ahead, Councillor Dirksen.
I was just going to suggest that perhaps we could pull item 7F with the phasing out of free well water testing in the rural areas.
So you want to pull that and get the staff to do a report? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, just wait, let me pull that up here again, sorry. I think that the Osabo Bayfield Maitland Valley Source Protection Committee has a problem, or has a concern with putting a charge on it, because people will just simply stop testing, because it's one of those things that is hard to get people to do anyway, and if you add a charge to it, it's going to be even more difficult to get people to do that.
Okay, so you want to move that and we'll get a seconder and pull it out. That's what you're suggesting?
Through
Go
you,
ahead.
Mayor Turton. They do happen to have a resolution at the end of theirs, and that we could support that resolution.
Okay.
I would move that resolution.
Is that okay? Okay. So
We can do it today, sure.
we just go ahead and do that, or do you want a motion over and second?
I would do a mover and second
Okay.
to do that.
Councillor Dirksen? Or seconder, please. Councillor Zimmerman? Is there any other ones that we need to talk about? If not, we'll vote on this resolution first. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Now we'll vote on the resolution to receive all the correspondence. All in favor of that? Okay, thank you. That's carried. Okay, so we're going to move into committee reports. And we'll talk about, the cultural roundtable minutes. Belinda Wick-Graham, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Turton, members of council. It's been a while since we've had a set of minutes. I think this is maybe the first this year. So there is quite a bit here to go through. Just some updates on the DEI committee, which reports to the cultural roundtable. They've been having some guest speakers who have all been very informative. We've talked about homelessness. We've talked about women's domestic abuse. We've talked about food banks. They've been very informative sessions. We are still working on the community pantry project in Clifford, but we have teamed up with Minto Pride and are doing an inclusive public art piece out of the community pantry. So we're combining the two into one statement piece, and we are going to be placing it at Celebration Square. We've worked with Paul Judge and Mike McIsaac to identify the best location for this, and we're excited to see it come to fruition, hopefully this spring. We also had our DEI event in our learning series for Black Heritage Month. It was a sold-out event with close to 50 people in attendance. And our next event, besides the Solidarity event in June, will be the Truth and Reconciliation event in September. At the Railway Museum, we've applied for rural economic development funding in partnership with the Palmerston Lions, the Railway Museum, All Aboard Palmerston, and the Farmers Market Committee to restore the caboose and the boxcar. And if the funding comes through, we will be able to do that in 2024, early 2025. So it will be completed in time for the 150th in Palmerston. The Pride Committee has been busy, again, feeds into our Cultural Roundtable group. So they've been hosting some public skating. They are getting ready, as I mentioned, for the public art piece. They are doing a bowling alley social on March 23rd. They'll be selling signs and decals again here at the town office and the Launchit office, and preparing for a drag show fundraiser and the Pride in the Park event. We're also hosting the Spark Symposium. As you all know, this is an Ontario-wide symposium. We're expecting about 100 people in attendance from May 23rd to 26th, and they'll be visiting many of our cultural facilities. On May 31st, we're having a joint cultural roundtable symposium with the town of Hanover and Wellington North, looking at doing some things with the Ministry of Culture, with Ontario Culture Days, and a session on DEI as well. We also had an update at this meeting on the status of the cultural plan. So we've been patiently waiting the completion of our strategic plan. And now that that's done, we're moving forward with the cultural plan and getting into some public engagement for this process. And we just went over our budget and where we wanted to spend our allocation. So those are the highlights from the meeting, if there's any questions. And I will note there is a DEI training session tonight at the train station from 7 till 9, and there's still seats available for that. And that's being hosted by our volunteer project through the Minto Arts Council.
Train station in Hairston.
In Harrison, 7 o'clock. Seats remain.
Questions for Belinda? Okay.
Mayor Turton?
Yes.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, get my hand up fast out there. I just had a question about the community pantry in Clifford at Celebration Square. Is there going to be a building there, or how, I don't understand how they work. I had pictured them as being in a building, but
no. So it is a metal structure. It's quite large, and it has doors on it, and it will be on legs. And so originally this was going to be on one of our members' properties. Then it was not, and it was going to be beside the Clifford Country Store, and then it was not. No part of Clifford Country Store, she very much would be supportive in having it there. But things evolved. Unfortunately, one of our members passed away on our DEI committee who was very involved with this project. So it is going to be placed in Celebration Square. If you drive down Allen Street, to turn into the parking lot, there's a light there, and there's a bulb in the sidewalk, so people will be able to access it to the right of the sidewalk. So in the winter, it's plowed and there will be the community pantry. The Clifford Rotary will be giving $100 towards it every month to stock it. We're working the insurance. Speaking of insurance, is fine. We've worked through that, and the last piece is just putting our kind of like toolkit management kind of protocols in order. And there are a lot of these around. This is not new. It's new to Minto, and we're hoping it's a pilot for having other ones across the municipality. So, yes. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's great. I didn't know, I didn't know what to visualize. So that is great. And I do hope it becomes a pilot. I think it's a great idea.
And it really is like for everyone. Like if you need something, take it. If you have extra stuff, leave it. We do the same thing at our community gardens when people have excess produce. They leave it on the table and people pick that up. And if they have something, they leave it. So it really is for everyone. We're trying to remove the stigma that's been attached to this project. And we feel that by combining it with this inclusive piece of public art, that it's going to be a statement piece and something that the community can be proud of. So
Perfect, thanks.
So if you Google community pantry, there is lots of municipalities that have them around their areas. It's not new, it's beautiful. It was purchased and assembled, and we were ready to put it up. And so we're going to try and do a little communication behind it, or beside it, or even in a paper. We have so we're hoping that it's a good thing, and we are definitely moving ahead. So, other questions? Okay, hearing none. I got the cart before the horse here, but the recommendation is moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Potnovitz, that the council receives the Culture Roundtable minutes of February 26, 2024 for information and approves any recommendations contained therein. All in favor of the motion? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to staff reports, and I'll pass the chair over to Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor Turton. I'd like to introduce our head man of recreation, Matt Lubers, and he's going to speak to two projects we have happening. One's about the ice resurfacer, and we'll deal with each one of them separately, and the other one's about the Harrison Fairgrounds. So go ahead, Matt.
That sounds great. Thanks, Councillor Elliott. So as noted in the report, a new ice resurfacer was approved in the 2024 capital budget for community services. And last month we issued an RFP to replace a unit in service that we bought in 2012, and the RFP window closed on the 22nd. 2 bids were received, with one meeting all specifications and the other meeting some of the specifications. So the unit that met specifications was the Olympia Millennium H series machine from Resurfice Corp in Elmira. And as such, we would like to proceed with the purchase of the Millennium H so we can put it into service this fall. I'll turn it back to you there, Councillor.
I'll read the motion first, and we'll ask questions after. Find it here. Moved by Councillor Zimmerman, seconded by Councillor Gunson. The Council of the Town of Minto received report CS 2024-001 regarding the ice resurfacer tender results, and that the Council of the Town of Minto approves the purchase of the one Olympia Millennium H series ice resurfacer from Resurface Corp for the total price of $117,944, excluding HST. Any questions? Yes.
Through your chair, Elliot. Is there any opportunity to recoup some costs on these by advertising on them?
Pardon me?
Is there any opportunity to recoup some costs by advertising on the Zambonis?
Yeah, so through Councillor Elliott, in Palmerston, we do have a couple of inlays, or not inlays, we've got some wraps on the machine, one on each side, so there would be the potential to wrap this one as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question. When was the last time we purchased one, and how's that compared to 117,000?
Thanks. That's a great question. So that was in 2018. We bought a similar machine from Resurface. I believe, I'd have to go back, I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to 90,000 at that time. But certainly the costs have gone up for these types of machines in the last 5 years.
So the delivery is when? And I know you said we're going to put it in use in the fall.
Yeah, so the anticipated delivery date would be late September, early October.
Yep.
That's right about the time where we've got one sheet of ice in and one just about ready to go.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I just want to say we've had Olympia a few times now, and they're a pretty solid machine, and we haven't had a lot of problems with them. So anyhow, all in favor of the motion? Carried. And now it's a pretty exciting topic we've got coming forward, the Harrison Fairgrounds. Matt, if you want to elaborate to that.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Elliott. So as you can see in the report, this has been about a year in the making since interim CEO Chris Harrow brought the idea of an overall plan for the Harrison Fairgrounds to you. A working group was formed shortly thereafter, and we tasked SKA plural consultants with creating a concept that met the needs of everyone at the table. So concept 4 incorporates elements and features found in the initial draft concepts and allows for implementation to take place over an indefinite time period. So that said, the working group identified 3 items that we'd like to complete this year, and they include a multi-sport court, a junior soccer pitch, so that'd be for U8 and under, as well as a walking path. And in order to achieve this, site prep work will be required as noted in the report, including a drainage plan, tree removal, and decommissioning of some utilities. An item of discussion at the open house event on February 20th was the dump station, and we plan to report back at a future council meeting about what to do with it moving forward, as we can begin work on the site with it in place. We have some previous capital funding from 2021 and a partner in the Harrison Kinsman Club to get started on the sports pad. And I'd just like to stress that this plan is something for us to work toward, and we're only asking you to accept it in principle at this time.
I'll read the motion and then we'll ask questions. Moved by Councillor Podnwick, second by Deputy Mayor Anderson. The Council of the Town of Minto receives report CS 2024002 regarding the Harrison Fairgrounds plan, and that the Council of Town of Minto accepts the concept in principle and plan as information. Any questions, comments? Councillor Podnwick.
Yes, through you, Chair. We've had some experience with this in the Palmerston Park there. I'm assuming on the pad, sports pad, you're going to put basketball nets and things like that. We found the basketball over there is very popular. One of the other questions I had was lighting. Was there discussions on lighting the path and around the sports pad and all that stuff?
Yeah, so through Councillor Elliott, at this point, we would look at lighting the sports pad. I don't know if we would necessarily look at lighting. We're thinking stone dust for the trail, so not quite as maybe not quite as nice as what's in Lions Heritage Park, but certainly we've seen the benefit of lighting the sports court in Palmerston. And yes, some of the features of the sports pad would be basketball nets, pickleball lines, and then maybe a couple of hockey nets for some street hockey.
Have we any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So tonight, we are accepting it in principle, and there can be changes made as we go. I think I heard you say that. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just a concept that we're hoping you'll accept in principle.
Yeah, thank you.
As you said once before, about another item that's a living document that we can move through. So, all in favor of that resolution? And that's carried. And I pass the chair to who gets it next. Mayor.
Sure, we'll pass it over to Deputy Mayor Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor Turton. And I'm promptly going to pass it over to Chris to give us a rundown on this shared fire management team agreement, which we all knew was in the works and subsequently we'll talk about their year in review. So you've got the floor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Anderson. Yeah, we've talked about this for a while. This is the details in it. The report does include the budget amendments that we've had to make because on paper, we will be bringing on 3 more staff because as it says in the report that Minto will house the staff and hire the staff. But then we will recoup our funds back from the other 2 municipalities, which comes out on the positive side for Minto. The other 2 municipalities last week both had the similar reports and accepted the agreement, and we're happy to sign it. So we're the last ones to do it here, and it will be all approved by all 3, and it will be a go to start April 1st. So other than that, it's pretty self-explanatory. As we said, we've been through it a bunch of times. We're excited to get going and see what we can accomplish with this new partnership.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions? Yes, Mr. Elliott.
So through any of the, well, if I can spit it out. As far as having staff hired for the position, are they already in place, or have you interviewed for them, or how's that work?
So 4 of the 6 staff are already in place. They're inherited staff. So we have 4 on the team, 4 in the group now that have been working with the partnership with Wellington North. So we have 3 in Minto here and 1 from Wellington North. So they're already in place now. So we will be going at large, both internally and externally, for the training officer position and the administrative help position. So 2 positions haven't been posted. They were hoping to get them posted once this is agreed upon and the agreement signed. We hope to get them posted as soon as possible to get the help on board and start working with them.
So those first 6 are appointed, and the next ones are?
The 4 of the 6 positions are already appointed. They're assumed positions that we already have in place. There's 2 additional ones. So we have 3 here. We're bringing Marco will be coming over from Wellington North to Minto and become a Minto employee, and then we will hire 2 more at large.
Thanks.
No problem.
Thank you.
Councillor Podnowitz.
Yes, Chair. What's the term of the agreement?
It's a 10-year term. We asked for tenure, and what we've learned from the partnership we had with Wellington North for the previous 4 and a bit years is we need the longer term to have that mandate to be able to make changes and to be able to put longer term buying plans together that we're hoping will show savings in the future. But with just smaller terms, councils are, and we're a little more apprehensive to look at longer term capital items. So that's why we've asked for the 10-year term, and the other 2 councils have agreed with that. There is exit clauses built into the agreement that if any of the municipalities are not happy with the way it is, that they can be exercised at any time.
I'm just more concerned with the next term of council, whether they could opt out of it or.
Yeah, either council will have the chance to do that, but it is a 10-year agreement that will not come back to council. The council would have to more or less initiate it then, because it will be going on for 10 years. So.
Mayor Turton.
Thank you, Chair. So when we talk about house, we're talking 6 people running our fire service. They're not all in the same office. 2 or 3 come to one office, possibly, wherever in other fire services, within our 3 agreement areas, catchment areas, whatever. Correct. So I mean, we're not going to see all 6 people showing up. We might maybe the odd time, but they're not going to be in this office. They're going to be spread.
Correct. Yeah. All 6 people like we do now. We all have laptops, and we just go wherever needed, and we're spread out amongst the 3 municipalities now. So we'll be spread out. We'll be going to the different meetings in the 3 municipalities and that. So for sure, we don't have any facilities that we could house 6 people in anyway. So we have to spread out. So
I think the other thing that's really important here is this is a shared service between North Wellington, between the 3 municipalities here. And I know for a fact that I have talked to both Mayor Davidson and Mayor Lennox, and they're pretty excited about this. And so is Fire Service of Ontario. They're very serious and very excited about this shared service. And it's not the first for us to be with Wellington North and Mapleton, and looking down the road, don't be surprised if we have more. So, yeah, on behalf of council, Chris, thank you for pushing this through, and Khalees, I'm sure you were a big part of it. And so let's just onward and upward. So, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll read out this rather lengthy recommendation. The Council of the Town of Minto received report Fire 2024-001 regarding shared fire services management agreement and budget amendment. The Council of the Town of Minto approved the addition of 3 full-time positions for fire and emergency services. The Council of the Town of Minto approved an amendment to the Fire and Emergency Services 2024 operating budget with expenditure increases of $416,700 and revenue increases of $438,800 for a net impact of $22,100. The Council of the Town of Minto approve an amendment to the Fire and Emergency Services 2024 capital budget in the amount of $70,000 with funding provided from the Fire and Emergency Services Reserve in the amount of $28,000 and a recovery from Wellington North and Mapleton of $42,000. And the Council of the Town of Minto authorized the mayor and the clerk to sign the shared fire service management team agreement with Wellington North and Mapleton.
Through you, Chair Anderson, if I could just state that the motion will be made by Councillor Elliott and seconded by,
sorry, I forgot
can I say Mayor Turton? I believe your name was in there.
Yeah,
so
it
we'll
is.
say Mayor Turton.
Okay, everybody's clear on that? All those in favor? And that's passed. And then we'll move on to the year in review.
Through you, Councillor Anderson. I guess I'm just the resident statistician here to let you know what our vital statistics were for last year. So it's just a quick 6-page summary of what we did within the fire department. So page 1 kind of just gives you an overview of our breakdown of incidents. So cumulatively, we did 245 incidents last year. Noting 30% of that was medical, 18% was motor vehicle collisions, 4% structure fires, 2% outdoor fires, some other things in there you can read. And then moving through the rest of the report just goes to note some vital statistics in terms of on page 4, we go through just the incidents by month. So June, July, and August were the busiest months of the year. We also have a response time of less than 10 minutes for 74% of our incidents. Again, just showing you the breakdown in graph form. And then in terms of training, fire prevention, public education, again, we did 168 classes. We have an average attendance of 25 firefighters, which is pretty good. Seeing we have 2 stations that have 30 firefighters, 1 station has 25. We did 24 inspections, 500 burn permits, 12 burn complaints. And for public education, we had our Safe Kids Day annual event, grades 4 to 6. We had 180 students. We completed about 15 school tours in the spring and attended a myriad of events by request. Some of the ones that I could remember off the top of my head: summer day camps, Mennonite schools, school carnival, senior safety presentations, and that type of thing. So yeah, that's pretty much what we did in terms of statistics for 2023. So if you have any questions, I will answer them.
Thank you for that report. Are there any questions? Councillor Elliott?
Sorry, this may be dumb, but when you bring new people on, new recruits, do you have to be within a certain amount of time from the fire hall?
Usually I look within an 8-kilometer radius.
8 kilometer.
Yep.
And their work schedule, if they were working.
That doesn't usually, I mean, yeah.
So somebody might work in Waterloo, for example.
So Typically, we try to prioritize those that obviously work within the municipality during the day because that means they're the most beneficial. But if our hiring pool doesn't allow for that, then we will consider whoever we get, basically. Yeah.
Thanks.
Mayor Turton?
Thank you, Chair. So next year's report. Basically, this is, this report is our 3 stations.
Yep.
Next year. So I guess I have 2 questions, and I want to just be clear. We have the Minto Fire Service, we have the Wellington North Fire Service, and we have the Mapleton Fire Service.
Right.
So when you, the deputy chief, is giving a report, it will be to this Minto will be reported to Minto, and they'll totally be segregated 3 different services.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I just sometimes think people look into this as, this, and I disagree totally. Made in Minto, where a lot of good things happen in Minto, but now we are 3. And we are the 3 in North Wellington, the 3 fire services. And that's the way it is. And that's the way we're promoting it. So don't confuse it.
I have a couple of questions that people have. Let's see, burn complaints. Is that people complaining about a fire that they didn't get? So if you guys somebody says there's a bonfire in somebody's backyard and you have no fire permit on record, you have to go check that out?
Yeah. So it's just people complaining about neighbors having campfires and things like that usually.
Oh.
Or people burning garbage
So
or
does
things they're
one
not supposed
person
to
get
be.
to go for that, or do they have to take the whole truck out there?
No, it's usually Cam.
Oh, okay. He gets to go check on
He
that.
draws the short straw.
And I can't can't help but noticing that by a large percentage, most of your calls are medical. I'm assuming that's on the increase because of the pressures on the ambulance services, or is it the same as it has been?
That's pretty typical in terms
Okay.
of year
right.
over year. We did see an increase there during COVID for a little bit, but it's coming down
Okay.
a little bit. So
I just know on our side of the fence that the ambulance trucks are
yeah,
tied up. They're all on offload delays. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's got to have
yeah,
an impact.
that has a small impact, but yeah, in terms of our medical statistics, I wouldn't say that that's a huge increase.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I was just curious about that. So if I could refer Mayor Turton, if you were looking for separate reports, so the reports would be separate for each fire department. But in the instance that Councillor Elliott was talking about, if one area was short and another area had extra, would there be any thoughts of having the firemen go between the teams, or are they staying in their own teams? Like, how far does this joint effort go?
One of the things we're going to do with the partnership is we're going to look at response models.
Sure.
So we're going to look at essentially, because we are managing 3 fire departments, it would be closest stations go. So what our goal is going to be, which council will get agreements and look at it, but the municipal boundaries are more of a gray area instead of a black and white like they are now.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is 2 stations that are closer, but they're both from different municipalities, and those would be the 2 stations that would go, and then et cetera, et cetera. So we can work on that together because there's no extra layer of other management teams that we have to go through. We can just look at that and set it ourselves and do the best response models we can for the greater area. So,
And would there be any thoughts to staff? So say in North Wellington Healthcare, staff can indicate their willingness or availability to work at either site, and they can be transferred during the day if that's required. Is that something that would be looked at or considered?
where we would consider it is if somebody, for example, lives in Minto but may work in Mapleton.
Right.
Then we would consider that during the daytime they could respond to Mapleton.
Okay.
But we try to avoid having firefighters in their personal vehicles driving like crazy to another municipality down roads. We want to try and avoid that. But again, if people work in a different municipality in the daytime, then that's something we can definitely look at to say, we can work on that. But
Yeah, because you just think with schedules and things and demands and maybe not as many people volunteering as we'd like to have, maybe we have to consider those sorts of things. But we'll leave that in your hands to sort through the complexities of that. All right. Any other questions? Sorry, Councillor Dirksen.
Thank you. Mayor Turton's question sparked a thought. So I think what Mayor Turton was alluding to was that he's hoping that we'll continue to have a Minto fire report, for a yearly report. But will the waters be kind of muddied if you are not using municipal boundaries the way we are, black and white boundaries? Or will we still be able to get a Minto report?
You'll still be able to extrapolate that data, yeah. You have to, in your standard incident report, you have to allocate the incident to a municipality, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so that's how that will work.
Yeah.
And I was also wondering, like at one time, we used to get statistics from 3 different fire stations.
Okay.
Harrison, Palmerston, Clifford, obviously. So I'm just wondering, like, is one of our fire stations like overworked, overwhelmed with calls compared to another, or are they kind of spread out between the 3?
Palmerston and Harrison pretty much do the same in terms of call volume, and then Clifford does less, but
A
just
little
based
less,
on
but
population.
that seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, we also, in terms of our calls in Minto, we do a lot of 2-station responses, just based on what the call type is. So like structure fires, we're sending all 3 stations.
Of course.
So a lot of our, I would say it's fair across all 3 stations in terms of their call volume. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I will read out the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Podnowitz and seconded by Councillor Zimmerman that Council receives report fire 2024-002 regarding the 2023 year in review as information. All of those in favor? And that's passed. And I will pass the chair back to Mayor Turton.
And I'll pass it back to Councillor Dirksen.
Thank you, Mayor Turton. I'm going to pass the chair to, pass it over at least, to Treasurer Duff to present the report on council remuneration.
So this is for council remuneration. It's calendar period. This is the first full year. Here.
Okay. Treasurer Duff, are there any questions? Deputy Mayor Anderson.
Just to clarify, so per diem meetings are including the days that we spend at councils or conferences. So the conferences are the cost, the registration, and whatever expenses you incur there. The per diems are, because in theory, those should be the only per diems we have unless we're,
Previous. But again.
okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Doing this backward, but, so I'll read the recommendation, moved by Councillor Gunson, second by Councillor Elliott, that the Council of the Town of Minto receives report Finance 2024-003 regarding 2023 council remuneration for information. All in favor? Thank you, that carries. Up to pass the chair back to Mayor Turk.
We could pass the chair to Deputy Mayor Anderson until
Okay.
Turton returns.
I
Sure.
will do that.
Okay, so we've got a motion to return to regular council.
Oh, sorry. We are actually at announcements at this point.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
I missed that little line. Okay, announcements. Shall we start with you, Councillor Dirks?
Sure. So on Saturday, this past Saturday, I was down to Elma, to their community center, and the Wellington Farm Home Safety Association, which I sit as a committee member, held a safety day. We had a free breakfast, and I believe it was 14 stations that the kids could go around to talk about safety in their home and on the farm. We had over 400 people there. It took 40 volunteers. It was quite a successful event, and yeah, it went really, really well, and sent the kids home with lots of information.
Excellent.
Nothing for me this afternoon.
Councillor Elliott? Councillor Podnowitz? Councillor Gunson?
I'll just report on this because Mayor Turton will not toot his own horn. So chili cook-off on Friday at the Legion, and I don't know if it was Mayor Turton that cooked or Pam that cooked, but they won first place with chili cook-off, and Eric Cox was runners-up this year, which I had nothing to do with.
That hurt, eh?
I have just one announcement. So the Harrison Horticultural Society right now has Think Minto First certificates for sale, which is a major fundraiser for the Hort Society, but also very beneficial to the businesses in town as it keeps people shopping in town. So if anybody would like a copy of that, I can email it to you. If you just let me know, send me an email, I can pass them around. And we encourage people to support both the Hort Society and the local businesses. And then Mayor Turton, do you have any comments? Or I'll
yes.
just pass the chair back over to you and you can finish.
Thank you very much. Two items. The last Wednesday night, February 21st, 2 Wednesday nights ago, the AGM for the Chamber of Commerce, Minto Chamber of Commerce, was held. It was very well attended, and there was some awards given out for longevity of businesses, and it was interesting. Some of us were there, Deputy Mayor Anderson, and so it was definitely worthwhile and very, very enjoyable. I think next year we have a 50-year business award to be given out. So, second thing is I have an email from a young lady. She said, "Good evening, Mayor Turton. The Waterloo Wellington Down Syndrome Society is excited to celebrate the World Down Syndrome Day on Thursday, March 21st. It's rapidly approaching, and the Waterloo Wellington Down Syndrome Society would love to have you join us in a celebration." So I suggested that I was not available, but she thanked me, and she said this day was thoughtfully chosen due to the 21st chromosome being triplicated, which is trisomy, thus causing Down syndrome. We often celebrate and bring awareness to World Down Syndrome Day by wearing our colorful socks, which resemble chromosomes. So I challenge you all to give these folks some thought, and on March 21st, anyone that's interested, it's in Kitchener, it's at 5:30 to 8:30, but wear your colorful socks that day. It's absolutely worthwhile, so thank you. Anything else? So I have a motion, moved by Councillor Zimmerman, seconded by Councillor Botnowitz, that the committee of the whole be complete, the convening of the whole convenes into regular council. All in favor of the motion? That's carried, thank you. Notices of motion, any of those? Okay. Moving on, moved by Councillor Gunson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that the Council of Town of Minto ratifies the motion made in committee of the whole. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you. Bylaws. Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Botnowitz, that bylaw 2024-011 and 2024-012 be read the first, second, and third time and passed in open council, sealed with the seal of the corporation. All in favor of the motion? That's carried. Confirmatory, moved by Councillor Dirksen, seconded by Councillor Botnowitz, that the bylaw 2024-013 to confirm the actions of council, corporation, town of Minto, respecting a meeting held March 5th, 2024, be read a first, second, and third time, passed in open council, and sealed with the seal of the corporation. All in favor of the motion? Adjournment. Moved by Councillor Zimmerman, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that the council of town of Minto adjourns to meet again at the call of the mayor. All in favor of that motion? We're adjourned. Thank you very much for a very productive meeting.